studs and duds of 2022.
Studs and duds, I am ready.
All right. So let's start out with the dud section just so we can end up on a high note for the
Well,
end of the
One thing I will say for our listeners is these are games we played in 2022, not necessarily came out in 2022.
Yes. That is a fair thing to say, just to make sure everyone understands. Now, for a quick clarification, my top two of my fourth and fifth picks of my dud section were not because they were bad or trash or anything. They just did not live up to the expectation that they've had from other iterations. So they're not bad. They're not bad, but they're not what they should have been, and they're actually let down.
Yeah, my first game on my duds is the same thing. So is my second game on my duds.
So good. Me and you are both on the same page, so we both understand.
Correct. Yeah.
So let's start with my first dud of the year of 2022. Xenoblade 3.
That was on your duds list, really?
Not because it was bad, not because it was not as good as 1 and 2.
Okay.
And the end of the story kind of really threw a lot of things into the wrench. They didn't explain some of the stuff they should have explained, like how those guys came into being, how Z really came into being, instead of just some guy who's like, I wanted time to stop. And somehow he was given almost all omnipotent power to do so just from that. So that's why is a lot of plot points that should have been answered were never answered. And then on top of it, the ending was wonky at best.
At best, yeah.
And then the bugs in the game allowed me not to complete a lot of sections of game because I was trying to get all the heroes, get all that stuff for them, and try to do what I normally don't do for our JRPGs, is trying to complete everything. And because of those missed missions, like the boat one that you also missed that glitched out and you couldn't do.
Yep.
I wasn't able to do so. So it made 5th worst on my list, only because it did not live up to what it should have been, and there were just some rough edges that should have been sanded down before it was released.
Yeah. So the first one on my duds list, and by the first one I mean the least of the worst. Life is Strange True Colors. Because I gotta say, after I think I actually, when I reviewed it originally on here, I said I liked it. I didn't think it was mind blowing, but I thought it was good. And in retrospect, as time has gone on, it's not nearly as memorable as any of the other Life is Strange style games. Like, at this point, I still remember the story, but it's not good. Like, it's not impactful in any way, shape, or form. It's a beautiful game that I think tries really hard to be emotional, and it doesn't have a lasting impact. Like, I still remember Life is Strange and Before the Storm, and those were impactful. I don't know if it was the novelty or what it was, but the story there seems to have more meaning than what True Colors had. And by no means is True Colors a bad game, it was just disappointing.
Okay. Now it's time for the top of our stud section. So my 5th stud of the year. Cat Quest 2. It was a nice little independent game that me and Cheetah played together the whole way through. It was the isometric Zelda-esque title that I talked to you about earlier in the year. It was just super fun for me and Cheetah to play together. It was to force cooperation out of both of us. And everything was cute and dog and cat themed. And the fact that there was a Batman character in there And it was just a really cute game. It was really simple to play. It was really fun to play. And I'm looking forward to the third installment when they come up with it, because me and Cheetah just got so much joy out of it.
Yeah, I remember you doing the review out of it, and it was overwhelmingly positive.
Yes, it was fun to play, and I was actually thinking about picking it up for you and your significant other to play, because I think you two would have fun just playing it.
Is it, if it's not a fighting game, I don't think Tristan would touch it.
It kind of is.
Okay, Kyle, not fighting with me.
That's where it gets fun.
My number 5 on my top list. Tunic and Death's Door. Those are both games that have stuck with me a while, and I always think about them in a pair because they are so they scratch the same itch even if they do it in different ways. Tunic's rich world and absolutely gorgeous soundtrack, its way of making secrets both obvious and appealing when you solve the issue, are only held back by its garbage combat system. Whereas Death's Door is a switcheroo. Its combat system is stellar and the story is well done. The secret aspects aren't nearly as well executed as Tunic. If you're going to play one of them, I highly recommend you play both of them just to get that whole experience, even though they're entirely unrelated to each other. But I loved both of them, and I still think about them to this day.
Bayonetta 3.
See, I haven't finished Bayonetta 3, and I probably am not, so I didn't put it on this list because I also haven't watched the story yet.
Yes.
But go ahead, go for it.
The reason why Bayonetta 3 made it on this list, not because it was terrible, it was just, as I said at the beginning of this, it did not live up to its predecessors at all. Because of how the storyline goes, it doesn't have the rich moments like Bayonetta 1 and 2 did. Like the moments that either made you laugh or intrigued you into the story and helped you dive into it. It just kind of like cookie cutter villain with random plot points that never come together to a cohesive story like number 1 did. Like there was weird, like, who is this little girl? Is it Bayonetta's daughter? Is it Bayonetta? And then you find out near the end, everything ties together and how it all transpired. And then we get number 2 that goes even further details in that helps make a total nice circle of a story, where Bayonetta 3 was just kind of there. With the new combat mechanics, even though they were interesting, they were very clunky, not as refined as they should have been, and also just there was just some parts of it that just didn't hit right. And then the complete arbitrary difference between Viola's combat and Bayonetta's combat is so hugely different. It really throws you off, and it really makes it hard to adjust to it.
Far Cry 6. Unlike your 4, Kyle, mine is actually starting to get into this sucks territory. Far Cry 6 is just a bad game. It is the epitome of Ubisoft bloat. It is deeply uninteresting. The story at least makes sense-ish in Far Cry 6 versus something like 5. And also it avoids 5's problem of you playing the entire game and then at the very end the antagonist who murders tons of people ends up being right about things. Far Cry 6 is not like that, but it's also just not a good game at all. I highly recommend everyone just avoid it. It's bad. The mechanics are bad. The story is bad. Everything about it is just not good in any way, shape, or form for the millions of dollars spent on making it.
Condemned. The original Condemned.
Origins.
Yep, Criminal Origins. The original Condemned. Now, out of everything I've played this year, it is definitely the most dated and clunky as possible. But the storyline, the gameplay that they were going for, and the environment were all so well put together that it made the game great. The close combat felt heavy and visceral, and just every blow just felt like you were there. The storyline was a little bit all over the place and really quickly paced for some of the transitions to different areas, but every area felt alive or dead in this instance, and it just felt good. The whole game felt good most of the way through. Even the little frustrations I had with it were coming from a place of, wow, this was a great game, and why am I frustrated? Because I'm enjoying playing it, and it's making me frustrated to lose when I'm so in depth into this game.
Deathloop. So Deathloop is from Arcane, I believe Leon, the French studio, and it is a super stylized retro future 60s shooter with a Groundhog Day mechanic. I adored every second of that game. I think it was gorgeous and well executed. The shooting was good. The story was fantastic. Everything was it executed at such a high level that it was just fantastic. It was wonderful. The reason it's not higher on the list is it's a short game with low variety. That's its only major problem. And by variety, I mean guns and enemies. I don't mean situations. It is a playground of making up your own crazy traps and situations, and it's a dynamic gameplay experience. But it is a contained experience. There's been a rumor, though, thanks to a leak from the main character's voice actor, that there is more Deathloop coming. So either an expansion or a sequel, which I would welcome with absolute glee.
Onibanchara Z2 Chaos has made my list of my third worst game of the year. And the reason why it's there is it is just slightly worse than Bayonetta 3.
How is it just slightly worse?
Because the combat in that one is just sticky and slow and nowhere near where it should be. The combos are very glitchy and don't flow well together. Where Bayonetta's combos and stuff, that still all flows. It's just they added some extra stuff to it that bogged it down for Bayonetta 3, where this was the basics are super bogged down before they even try to add anything else to it to make the game more interesting.
That's fair.
It also has a nonsensical plot. Now, the plot so far is nonsensical and not great, but there is just some stellar voice acting. And I don't know how unserious I can be about the word stellar for this, because man, they just got whoever they could off the street for the voice acting for this game.
Dying Light, the zombie parkour game that kind of fit into Dead Island's like mind space. If it's not the same as Dead Island whatsoever, but it was a parkour zombie game that came out a very long time ago. I recently picked up the complete edition. By recently, I mean back in March, I think, or February. And I played it, and I thought it was just trash. The parkour wasn't good. The upgrade systems were not good. The combat system was not good. I didn't understand how people liked it so much. It's a very popular game, enough to spawn a sequel that I've heard people complain about being entirely different. It doesn't have Dying Light's like oomph to it. That actually makes me want to play the sequel more if it's not related to Dying Light that much. I just didn't like it. I thought it was mediocre at best.
Choo Choo Charles
I was wondering if that was going to show up.
That showed up only because I'm having so much fun playing it. It is a very simple game with a very eccentric plot, with some great random characters throughout the whole game. I mean, you were with us on the stream. Like, the characters they have are just great. They're weird. Everything's very simple, but because the world is so weird and the concept is so weird, it's making the game amazing for me. So that is definitely my number 3 of this year.
My number 3 game is a game called Paradise Killer. At one point, I gushed about it for a long time on one of the episodes, and I still believe it is one of the best games I've ever played. And it is a game that, and you're going to hear this about the other 2 games, it's a game I'm sad that I will never have the chance to experience for the first time again. Paradise Killer is a 3D walk around investigation game that has visual novel-esque otherwise gameplay. Like, when you interview characters, they're like visual novel stuff, and you can do relationship things. It's not a dating sim at all, but you can enhance your relationship with people in order to get more information out of them. You play a character on an island outside of reality controlled by demon worshipping cultists that is trying to make the perfect land, but someone has murdered all the council members that can create the perfect demon land realm, and you have to investigate who did it. And the world is gorgeous. The story is fantastic. All the characters are wonderful. And I would undergo electroshock if I could remove the memories of this from my mind to play it again.
Silver medal of the games that ate shit this year. Pokemon Scarlet.
Wow, okay, I did not see that one coming.
Oh, Andrew, it is not good. It's very generic. It's not everything with it, like the open world map itself is very generic. They tried to do Pokemon Legends Arceus in such a weird way, where it's the map is expansive. I will give the map 100%. It feels great. Wandering the map feels great. Everything else, though, does not. The Pokemon battles themselves are not well done. They're very gross looking. The battles themselves are just very... And that was my issue with Sword and Things. Like, they kind of took down some of the aspects of battle and made the moves really generic just so they could not have to put as much money into the details. This one, they've really put some things down there and made it even more cheap looking. Along with the NPC models are just not good. 90% of the character models you will see that are not part of a city or part of the evil team, or even the evil team, they're all the same. Like I said about when I first talked to you about it, I met this guy who's like, I'm 75 years old. I spent the first 50 years looking for the first gym. And he's an old man, a fat old man, who is in a school uniform. So he's got the rolled up schoolboy shorts with the high knicker socks and the shoes and everything. And that's 90% of the character models are all adults in your school uniform in different fashions. Like, the one guy is a very flamboyant gay man in a school uniform. It's just it's really bad. The character models are really bad. Now they have some excellent ones, like the later professors and stuff, but it's still just it's not. I'm not enjoying it. I'm not enjoying it as much as I should enjoy Pokemon, especially since the whole concept of Pokemon hasn't really changed over the 20 some years it's been around. So this was definitely my second worst of the year, because for everything they tried to do new, they've either abandoned or bastardized what they've already established as far as gameplay.
Scorn. I love H.R. Geiger-esque aesthetics. I love weird games that have like a bizarre grotesquerie to them. I like first-person shooters and I like puzzle games. Scorn somehow manages to botch every part of it. Literally every part. It is junk. I use the word Eurotrash a lot. I think Scorn is Eurotrash. I don't even know if it's made by Europeans. I still think it's Eurotrash. It's just such a bad, disappointing game that has no redeeming value whatsoever to human society. At all. It's just bad.
Fair enough. Ori and the Blind Forest.
Really? That's your two?
That's my number 2 because I cannot complain about anything I played in that game. The storyline, even though they were trying to do the gut punch, sad storyline, was really well told. The environment was beautiful. The puzzles were fun. The map was expensive. The artwork was beautiful. The soundtrack was beautiful. The game itself was just a beautiful game. The only downtick I had for it was like the trying to do the sucker punch twist to everything, where they're like, let's punch you in the feels that much harder. Like, you already got punched in the feels. We're gonna hold you down and keep punching you in the feels. So that's the only reason why it made my second of this year.
Sable by a small UK studio. Sable is a game where you play a young woman who it's like a post-apocalyptic sci-fi world. There's no violence whatsoever, and the game is about this young woman going out to figure out her life. Her tribe sends her out on a quest to figure out what she wants to do in life by experiencing all that the world has to offer. And they do so by the way of masks. So everyone in the society has a mask, and the mask tells everyone what job they have. It's not restrictive, it's the jobs they picked, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You get a jet bike, which you can customize, and you go around this massive world. It's all cell shaded and gorgeous. And you just meet these people, you do errands for them. There's no combat. It's just you and the open desert and the subtle music. The climbing is so well done. It's kind of like a Breath of the Wild-esque in that way. The climbing and like you can fly, you can glide rather. And you just learn about this world and the stories of its people, and you help this young woman kind of come of age in this experience. And it's just well executed, especially from a studio that I think is maybe like 6 people. It's so just perfectly done. It is a game where at the end I was very satisfied with every outcome of it. Like at the end of the game, you have all these masks for all the jobs that you've done, and it asks you to pick one. Which one resonates with you the most through your journeys? And traveling to all the different areas of the map, you get to see so many people. You get to meet and talk with them. You get to see so many rich new realms, and you get to learn how these societies function in this world. And while it's post-apocalyptic, it's not without hope. Everybody is working to help everyone else. It's not a nihilistic, dark game. It is a game about how society could really function if people just tried. And I loved it.
Oh, it was bad. And I still haven't even completed it, even though I said I would.
What is it?
It is Thief.
Okay, yeah. That sounds right.
This trash fire, I hated everything about it. And I tried The weird control setup is already mind-numbingly bad. With the weird R2 button, use some things, the stealth aspects clunky. Everything in this game is bad. And then you have the main character who's like, I always wanted to be Batman, but not really. Oh my god, it makes me angry.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason they haven't made a sequel.
Like, there's nothing as equal this year was that bad. And I hate you for it, Andrew. I am getting angry again thinking about this trash fire of a game.
Yeah, that sounds like Thief. We Happy Few. I want to go on the record and say that, yes, I think this is one of the worst games that I have ever touched in my life because it takes a really solid original idea. Like, what if, okay, there's going to be some spoilers here, but what if the Nazis won? What if UK society had to basically purge themselves and slaughter tons of innocents and then take happy pills to forget about it? What if you made one of the worst stealth action games of all time? It takes a great idea and it just drives it right into the ground. The stealth gameplay is not good. It is mediocre at the best. The actual moment-to-moment gameplay is also pretty terrible. The story, it tells 3 separate stories. They're not engaging. And the most, like, there's such promise there that is never executed in any way that is satisfying. I remember this game being hyped a lot. It looked so original. It was colorful. It was really gorgeous. It was going to be a big hit for Microsoft because they bought the studio. And then it came out and everybody just stopped talking about it. And for good reason. I understand now why it's a game that really should have just been forgotten about. There's the only redeeming quality is the art style, and that's it. It took a thing of infinite promise and it just blew it all away. And I don't know what that studio is even working on right now. I would be embarrassed to work there.
Ghostwire Tokyo was my number 1 of 2022.
Really? Okay. I have thoughts about Ghostwire. I know you don't want to hear them until I'm actually done with it, which I am actively playing it. I do enjoy it. So talk to me about it without spoiling it.
Without spoiling it, the map, I'm just gonna go from the stuff that I love the most all the way down. I'm just gonna work. The map itself was huge. It felt enormous. You felt so small in this entire map. Then on top of it, with how empty the streets are of this town, and how, because I believe it's Tokyo still, right? I don't even know why I'm questioning that, but
the game is Ghostwire Tokyo.
Tokyo, right? I know, but the whole city of Tokyo being empty, with everything you know of how busy it is and how everyone's on top of each other, just having a dead city to be in, and all the details of the map and how huge it is, and that's just the surface map. That's not even going into the underground and the subway systems and all the integral different parts like the malls and all that stuff, on how big this map is, how wonderful it is, and then how eerie it is for everything to be empty and there being nobody around. There being no other humans around, and feeling the emptiness of that city now. And then the combat, even though rudimentary, is really good. It's solid. It feels good. It allows you to come up with different ways to play based on what you feel is right. And the different styles of attacks you get, along with the traversal powers, all feel good. Like, there was so much stuff they did right with this that I can't even find flaws. What little flaws there were in this game. The enemies themselves are creepy. Even though they're all just like faceless people and stuff like that, they're creepy. They're unsettling. It gives you so much wonderful lore of Japanese mythology and all the different spiritual aspects of that culture. So the whole game itself and the storyline is very good. Like the storyline gives purpose behind everything. You know, the two small things I am disappointed in were so outweighed by everything else that I can never hold this game in a bad light. And I can't wait for you to finish it so we can talk about it. Because I feel like it's worth another playthrough for me, which I never do. Which I'm already, since you're part of it, playing it already, I'm going to replay it through now. And that's why it is my number one game of this year.
What game has literally everyone decided is one of the best games of all time?
Elden Ring.
Yeah, it's Elden Ring. I have literally nothing to say about this that hasn't been said a billion times over by literally everyone who pays attention to video games. Elden Ring is my favorite video game of all time. Just period. It is the best game ever made, in my opinion. That's it. I've got no follow-up. I'm not going to continue explaining it. I'm just going to say it's the best game ever made.
That is absolutely fine. Before we move on for any of our closing stuff, I have one game that's going to be a bonus. And it's the reason why is it sat so perfectly in between my worst games and my best games that it could not make either of the lists. Like it sat so perfectly because there was something so bad about it that I felt it needed to be on my worst games list in the 4th or 5th spot. But there were so many other aspects that I loved about it that it could have made the 4th or 5th spot on there either. It is not even a full game. It was the Resident Evil Village DLC, Shadows of Rose.
Yeah.
When I talked to you about completing it and beating it, the downsides that really put in there is the third person mode did not feel like that great. That they only put the third person mode in to be able to have you experience some of the enemy's attacks from a third person point of view, because it wouldn't have been as interesting from a first person. Like the cinematics for some of their kills had to have been done from a third person angle. On top of it, the other disappointment was they kept trumpeting from the mountaintop about how it was going to be the ending of the Winter Saga. Well, for me, it was no ending. It was just what happened in between the ending cinematic of Village and then the end credits cinematic. So there was not an ending to the Winter storyline. It was just, let's talk about what happened in between the very last cutscene of Village and the credits of Village.
Oh.
So it was just that disappointing. Now, the upsides for that were the environment was stellar. It was creepy. The enemy designs were amazing. It made you... It terrified me most of the time. The environment, great. The revisiting of older locations and making them scarier than what they were in the original game, great. Just some of the beats to it and how they had to change how you worked some of the puzzle out, great. You know, not very many a lot of games get me to jump and be scared, but my biggest jump for the year would go to the Shadows of Rose DLC, and that's why it was also leaning towards one of my 5th best, because of the environment that they made for it was stellar. It made me feel helpless. It made me feel like this sucks, and it was great. But it was also bad. And that's why it was my perfect mid game of this year. As it didn't push one way or another. Its badness kept it from hitting the top, but its good parts didn't make it a trash fire.
Okay. I was waiting until there's a discount on that DLC to pick it up and play it. I am eventually going to play it.
It's worth it. It's worth playing through.
Okay. All right.
Now, our closing stuff for, I guess, this episode. We
extra
have
special long episode.
Is it extra special long? How long is it?
It's an hour and 21 minutes so far.
Oh, well, after editing it down, it'll probably be an hour and 10. So we have a slew of different videos I've been posting, interviews with different people from Eternal Weekend, Legacy Championships. I got to interview most of the top 8. I've been posting them up along with a best of our stream that we did together for our first stream for the Choo Choo Charles part. I didn't feel there was any best parts for our Apex because we sucked.
Oh yeah, we did.
I didn't feel like people need to see that again. So, other than that, we're going to start off our 2023 year with some newer games and some older games, and we're going to discuss the formatting of that for this year so we have something a little more concrete. But other than that, it's looking to be a promising 2023 going into the birthday of the show, which is February 10th. And with that, I'm going to wish you guys a good day.
Later, everybody.